My name is James Espinoza. I'm a police officer. I have worked in law enforcement for 15 years. I also am a military veteran. I served almost 6 years in the Army as an aircraft structural repairman. So I have about 20 years in uniform in my life, about 30 years working experience in a couple different careers. So part of my career, I was a SWAT crisis negotiator. I was a crisis intervention team trainer. I've worked various assignments such as gangs and homicides. I've seen a lot of trauma, done a lot of death notifications, and actually been a part of a lot of teams that have helped a lot of people too. So, for that reason is the reason I'm here today. All right, so my brother, his name was Ponce. Yeah, so my brother his name's Ponce Espinoza. He was an Army veteran. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, a West Point graduate. He's about 3.5 years older than me. So I grew up, in short, I grew up chasing him, following him. You know, he was my hero. He was a good guy. So if you want to ask some other questions, we can lead into that and come back to that. But, you know, he grew up here in Ventura County. He surfed the beaches out here off of C Street when he was a kid. Graduated from high school in this county. And then he went to West Point Military Academy after high school. That led to a 20-year career in the Army where he finished as a lieutenant colonel. And during that time, he deployed to Bosnia, Afghanistan. He did some time in Kuwait in 2012. He has a family that loved him. So he was a champion athlete. So he was on a high school CIF state championship team in California. That's the southern section of California Interscholastic Sports Federation, CIF. He was a track runner, cross-country runner. Never saw the guy quit in my life. You know, I had to look at everything backwards from the day I got the call that he died to where I could first start to see the change. I definitely saw a change. You know, over 20 years. So let's see, he left home in 1988, and he died in 2018. Yeah, so you're talking about 30 years of his life spent away from us. A good part of that, I spent chasing him. You know, trying to kind of catch up, so to speak, as little brothers do. So looking backwards in time, I can look at and think of moments that maybe I could have listened better. But I know this is not my fault. But I look back and say, you know, we're fighters. We're fighters. We're guys that have built these careers. I'm sorry. Okay. So we're guys that built these careers that, for all intents and purposes, showed our strength, right? At least in the social sense of the word or career, you know, I realize that's relative. Strength is relative. So I look back and go, man, I missed that. How did I miss that? You know, having been a SWAT crisis negotiator and obviously having been a CIT trainer for the crisis intervention team and helping train people, I couldn't believe that my brother did this. That's probably the biggest smack in the face. So yeah, I saw it change. And I missed it. My spidey senses were up, so to speak. My instinct was up that something was wrong. But I didn't know to what depth until after he was gone, unfortunately. So for years, he would kind of go off the radar. By that, I mean we would have moments where we'd talk, in hindsight, daily, but you know, maybe every other day, maybe once a week. But for us, as being so far apart, I would say we would talk almost daily, and there'd be weeks or months that we wouldn't, where he wouldn't answer calls or his text replies were short. That's one of the things that happened. Is I know now. I'm trying to remember from that time period what I would think. I would look at it and think, well, he's not calling me back. That's weird. And the last year leading up to his death, I actually talked to him a couple of times when he wasn't responding. And believe it or not, I sent him a text. I said, "Hey, are you alive? Give me a call." You know. He called me maybe a day later, and he was real flat, just really flat. If you knew my brother, he was a super outgoing dude. I mean, he was most spirited for a senior class in high school. He was most inspirational for his high school CAF championship team. He just was a super motivator. You talk to anybody that knew him, he was this happy guy that tried to make you feel good, right? So for him to be completely just flatlined, really just monotone, expressing that he couldn't get out of this funk. He'd call it a funk. I just can't get out of this funk. I can't get out of this funk. You know, and he knew it would pass. He knew that it would pass. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what he meant. I just, okay, bro, you know, keep it up. He had gone through a transition period, and I forgot to mention this. He retired from the Army in 2013, March 1st, 2013. On March 18th, 2013, we found out my dad had cancer. So, June 12th of 2013, my dad died. And my brother was unemployed. So he went through this period of being retired, unemployed. The transition from the military, it wasn't this whiz-bang, you're a retired lieutenant colonel, here's your job. It was a struggle. He couldn't get a job. He was overqualified for most jobs that he wanted at the management level, and underqualified for most technical jobs because he was an administrator for all intents and purposes. So he landed a job that he had for 4 years after that first struggle of unemployment. It may have been about 6 months in 2013. And then this time my dad also died. So imagine the stress that he felt when he was in Colorado. And he kept that job for 4 years. And about 3 weeks before he was vested there, they let him go. So again, as a retired lieutenant colonel, he found himself unemployed, looking for jobs. Couldn't get one. I don't know why. I mean, highly qualified, West Point graduate. I don't understand why he didn't get it or couldn't get them. But he eventually landed another job at the New York Military Academy. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's actually very famous, and it's a high school in New York Military Academy, and I believe it's actually where Donald Trump went. Don't quote me on that, but I've done some research on it, and he was either going to be the commandant or in charge of the Corps of Cadets or something like that, and we're proud of him. We're happy for him. He and his family relocated back to New York, where he went to college, where his wife was from. So we figured, all right, you landed a job, we're out of the woods, good to go, And in this time period, we also had some of those ups and downs where he would go off the radar. Okay, just kind of encourage him. The first day of his job at the New York Military Academy, he left. He walked out. To this day, I don't know why. Something triggered him there, and he left. Quit. Day one, he says, I'm not doing this, because his idea of whatever the job was going to be triggered him to walk out. I talked to him a little bit about it later, and I had some really stern brother talks with him, like, dude, you don't leave a job until you have a job. What were you thinking, kind of thing, and not being inside his head, obviously. And it gets back to me being the little brother, still looking at him as the bigger brother. I'm respectful that way. It never occurred to me to allow him to be vulnerable at the time. There are plenty of vulnerable moments throughout our lives, but at that time, it didn't dawn on me, and he kind of sunk again. So while he looked for another job, he ended up landing another job, and he got a job at West Point working for the Army Corps Ethics Program. Again, another 2 or 3 month period where we're kind of holding our breath going, all right, he gets a job, and we all breathe a sigh of relief. By we, I mean me, my mom, my sister, whoever knew he was looking for a job. But in retrospect, or in looking back, there were things he was saying that I missed. He was so before he deployed to Afghanistan in 2009, he told me he wanted to be buried at West Point. He told us, my mom, my family. So we knew that if he died, that's where he wanted to be buried. I mean, he went there. Makes sense. Military officers, honorable burial site, right? We used to have these talks on the way home, always in my car or on the way to work. So on the phone, this is on the phone, not in person. We talk, and he reminded me, I'm going to be buried at West Point, bro. And, he says, you're going to tell my story one day. You're going to tell my story. I said, okay, man, that's cool. Yeah, I'll tell your story, but what are you talking about, He just says, just years from now, a long time from now, you're going to tell my story. Just remember, I'm going to be buried at West Point. And then he said this thing where if he dies, he's going to be cremated, and half his ashes are going to be buried at West Point, and half his ashes are coming home. Kind of a testament to his mind, like he wanted to be here, but he had to be there. It was just a split interest in death. And I said, I didn't quite understand. I'm thinking, what are you telling me this stuff for? Okay, that's great, man, whatever. Good, I'll tell your story, right? And we're talking about it, and Another time he said, after when he got the job at West Point, we're talking, and I remember telling him, dude, I'm so proud of you, man. You know, you did it. You got through the worst part, you know? Excuse me. You got through the worst part. We're talking, he got the job. Oh man, you're out of the woods. You know, you did it, dude. You did it. You stuck it out. You got through the hard part. You did it. Good job. I said, man, this time last year, I didn't even think I'd be here. I said, what? Oh, you think about hurting yourself? What are you talking about, you know? And he said, no, I'm not, no. And he kind of backed away from it. I can think of the conversation in my head backwards now. I said, no, you know, I was losing my job, just finances, we were moving, there's just a lot going on. I don't know, I wasn't gonna hurt myself. I just didn't think I'd be here at this point making this much money that I was then, because he's making more money by his own account. So that's kind of strike number 2, right? It's kind of these weird comments. And then he would buy himself time by telling me, yeah, man, we're gonna wear our veteran stuff. We're gonna be old men drinking Coronas on the beach. That's what we're gonna do. Don't worry about it, man. We're gonna be old men drinking beers together on the beach one day. So. The notification that he died came out of the blue. The behavior that he exhibited was a pattern that we had established with him already, where we would have these periods of talking, and then periods of him going off the radar, so to speak. So the strangest thing, and I talked about my instincts being in on something going on, is about 2 weeks before he died, he called me really upset about something. He just was really upset about something that was going on in his personal life. And he had made some decisions regarding his personal life that we all thought was a healthy indicator. We thought it was a healthy indicator. Okay, this guy's he's being the fighter that we know him to be. He's being the champion that we know him to be. And I think back and like, was that decision, was those words that he was saying to me, was that his way of telling me he's gonna die? You know, he's already said he's gonna be buried at West Point. He's already telling me he's gonna, I'm gonna tell his story. He's telling me, bro, you're gonna tell my story, you know. I did my dad's eulogy, now he's gonna make me do his eulogy? I mean, come on, dude. What are you talking about? There was other kind of manic behaviors that he had. I won't go into details, but there were things he said he was going to do that I would get. Actually, I got calls out of the blue sometimes, and he says, I'm going to be a business owner. The next time he's buying a house. Another time, you know, he's moving to California. Just these really kind of off the wall, he just made these decisions, I'm going to change my life kind of thing. And the day he called, I would say, let's see, so I got the call on the Tuesday after Easter last year. So April 3rd, I got the call, 2018. My very last text from him was on Easter. I said, hey, happy Easter, bro. He texted me back, happy Easter, that's it. Last communication ever. But about 3 days before that, I want to say Wednesday or Thursday before Easter, I told my wife, I said, something's going on with my brother. He's not answering my calls. And his texts are real short. So I knew he might have been in a little down cycle. And now I was kind of in tune to it. Something's really going on here. And this is because I had done, if you back up to the year prior, I had talked to him once or twice when he was not responding. And I learned of these flat spots that he would have. as a veteran, I also knew that he had gone to the VA for treatment at one point. I don't know what for. Here's another indicator I forgot to mention is one of his. He had a carpool buddy that took my brother's gun from him, which I didn't know the reason why until after he died. But during that time, the gun was taken from him, and he had sought VA treatment. My brother and I were still in communication all that time, and he never once told me that he was suicidal. Never once. It would have changed how I looked at it completely. He knew my experience and background. So whatever it was that he wanted to do or was thinking about doing, he was very careful about his words. Which brings me to the point I'd made earlier was maybe I wasn't approachable enough as his brother for him to share that with me. But he told other people, and I found that out afterwards too. So, getting back to your question, if it was out of the blue, or I think the essence of your question, was it a surprise? Yeah, heck yeah, it was a surprise. Because it wasn't the brother I knew. That's for sure. Yeah, when I got that call, I was writing a search warrant on a case at my desk in my office. Yeah. So I got a call from my nephew, who very seldom called me. So it's an indicator right there. Okay, what's this? What's going on? My nephew, gosh, I think he's 18 years old at the time. Maybe just turned 19, young. He told me that the New York State Police went and found him at work, found my nephew. His name is James too. I don't know if you can say his name or not, but they contacted the New York State Police. They contacted my nephew at work, and they told him that they found my brother. So my nephew he told me, he said, Uncle James, the New York State Police came and found me at work, and they told me that they found my dad. So, like, in a matter of seconds, I replayed all of those conversations that I just described to you. You're going to tell my story, I'm going to be buried at West Point, I didn't think I was going to be here this time this year. And what do you think my question was to my nephew? Is he dead? I didn't say, is he okay? I didn't say, what happened? What do you mean, where did they find him? I instantly knew. So, I'm just going to wipe my nose real fast. Yeah. So we had Easter Sunday, the text exchange. Monday was my day off from work. So normally after a weekend, I would call on my way to work. So between 6:30, 7 o'clock, usually that was kind of our routine. We'd talk to each other on my morning drive. But because I was off on Monday, I didn't call him. Tuesday morning, April 3rd, about 6:30 a.m., I tried to call him. Got his voicemail, obviously. I got that call on April 3rd, 2018 at about 1:30 in the afternoon. My brother was already dead. I'm sure he died probably overnight or the day before. So even when I called him at 6:30 in the morning on April 3rd, he was already gone. So knowing what I know about my brother, our relationship, the times that we do talk and call, my first question was, is he dead? And my nephew said yes. So now I had a dilemma because, first of all, I'm a sworn peace officer. I've done plenty of death notifications. I was a deputy coroner in Santa Barbara with the sheriff's department. I was a police officer here with Ventura Police Department. I don't know if I can say those agencies, but if you need to. I've been a police officer for 14, 15 years at the time. So, two things going on. At this point, total shock, instant shock. Excuse my language, but I said, oh shit, or oh fuck. And something in my head, something just, obviously, what do you say? My brother's dead. No ifs, ands, or buts. The New York State Police came, found my nephew, and my nephew has called me and told me my brother is dead. I'm at work, at a desk, with my gun on, working. So I didn't know what else to do. I shot my supervisor an email. I said, can you please come down to my office? I got her very bad news. He came down. And while I was talking with my nephew, he told me, he said, Uncle James, you got to go find my sister. His sister was going to college here in Santa Barbara. And I'm thinking, I got to go tell my mom. My mom lives an hour away. She lives an hour away from here. So, in the opposite direction. So from here in Ventura, I had to go north to get my niece, or go south to go tell my mom, and then get my niece. So it couldn't be any worse a situation than to have to go tell it couldn't be any worse. I had to go find his daughter and tell her that her daddy died. All right. So it couldn't have been any worse to have to either go north, I think I'm pointing north, to go tell his daughter that her daddy died, or drive south and go tell my mom that her son died. Which one do you do first, right? Social media, this could have been like that on Facebook or anything, and I about shit myself, to tell you the truth. I'm going, what do I do? I'm processing that he's dead. There's no downtime. I'm wearing my badge and gun. I'm at work. So a few other of our supervisors came in, and obviously they know it was tough. For the time being, I took my gun off. Not for any danger reasons, but because I didn't want to be a cop at that moment. And I don't mean I don't want to be a cop anymore. I mean, at that moment, I wanted to be a brother. I still had a job to do. So fortunately, I had a couple degrees of separation in the room. My supervisor, some other management people, and my commander at the time helped me organize my thoughts, and he said, "Okay, let's go. So we'll go get your niece, and then we'll drive and we'll get your mom." That's what that's collectively what we decided we're going to do. And my poor niece, we drove all the way up. And during that time, I'm going to share with you, I left my gun in the trunk. Took my badge, my gun off. I said, I'm not a cop right now. I processed the information. We drove to Santa Barbara and we talked on the way up, obviously. I was still in total shock, just shock. Got to Santa Barbara, I called my niece on the phone. She was excited I was there. Oh, what are you here for? You here to say hi, have lunch, what? Basically, where are you, honey? I need to find you. I need to see you right now. Where are you at? So I found her on campus. So I told my niece that her dad died. Can imagine that response. I just held her. And I held her. So my commander drove and I sat in the back with my niece. I held her the whole ride, 2 hours. Just sat with her. She cried the whole way. Obviously, I cried the whole way too. So I've talked about this. I've written this out. So I've shared this with even my wife and family. That part was tough. Back up a minute. When we got to Santa Barbara and we parked, symbolically, as symbolic as it is, I put my badge and gun back on. The symbolism of it was that I was the uniform officer given these death notifications for my brother. We didn't have to call anybody. I did it. We didn't have to wait for any cops to show up to tell us. I was that cop. Didn't have to wait for any military guys in uniform to tell us I'm a veteran. So, excuse my language, but goddamn it, if anybody's going to tell my mom that her son is dead, it's going to be me. I did tell my mom that my brother was dead. We drove 2 hours from Santa Barbara. My niece crying in my arms. That wasn't even the worst of it. And I'll try to be brief on this because it's tough to talk about. But we got to my house, my mom's house, the house that I grew up in with my brother. And I always showed up with my obviously for me in a suit, my niece with me crying and whimpering, and my commander. So there's two of us basically as police representatives. And my niece. Moms being who they are, she knew instinctually that something was wrong. I tried to ask her to, let's go have a seat in the living room. And she said, tell me what's wrong. And I told her. I told her that Ponce died. Ponce was dead. I'll spare you all the details, but the pain that I witnessed that day, it was worse than any pain I had ever seen or felt in my prior 14 or 15 years on the job. I've seen a lot of death. Seen a lot of grieving mothers and wives and kids. Delivered the bad news to other families. And now I had to deliver it to my own. So it didn't end with Mom. I had already told my wife. She was the first person I called. And for her, I just told her, this is what's happened. I need to stay focused. I still have to go find my niece and get to my mom before anybody hears about this. And I accomplished that. Now the rest of it happened. I had to tell my sister, her husband. I had to tell my kids. I have an adult daughter who lives back east in Kentucky. She's probably 23 at the time, 24, 23. I have an adult son who lives with me. He was 19, 20 at the time. A 13-year-old daughter, maybe she was 11 or 12 at the time, probably 12. A 19-year-old son in the Air Force getting ready to graduate from technical school. I call my cousins and tell them to get my aunt to my mom's house. They were able to buy her some time and didn't tell her, but she knew something was wrong. She had to drive an hour and a half to my mom's house to find out that my brother died. I called our pastor from my church. And he came to help. I learned some information at couple different points. I realized I didn't know the manner of death when I had originally told my family. And fortunately, my partner and the commander that was with me, he had sought that information already. So after all the initial notifications were done, and I had a moment of time to breathe and kind of take stock of what had just happened. I actually asked, how did he die? What happened? What do you do? My commander, I'm pretty sure I knew already, or I wasn't positive, but he confirmed to me that my brother shot himself. He fucking shot himself. I couldn't, excuse my language, but, of all manners of death, of any way to die, having been a military man, I've been around guns for 20 years of my career. I've watched people take their last breath from a gunshot wound, self-inflicted. I've seen it. My brother did this. Unbelievable. If I had one word for 2018, it was unbelievable. So that day, the day I found out he died, April 3rd, 2018, I don't think I got home till about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. It's after delivering the initial news. After telling my family that he died from a gunshot wound, self-inflicted. I got home. Took my badge off. Took my gun off. I took my badge and gun off, and I cried. Cried. That's all I could do. Can't change it. Can't fix it. It's done. It's done. Nothing I could do about it. And if I was to sum it all up, and you could put the whole event into one word and the way it felt like, what it felt like. It felt like failure. It felt like we failed him. It felt like I failed him. And I had no idea what the next year was going to bring. All I could do was get through that night. And the next day I woke up, and it was still true. He was still dead. I had more people to tell. And I had to figure out how to get my family to New York. So now the logistics phase starts of any death, right? Somebody dies, you do all the death notifications. I knew he wanted to be buried in New York. I wanted to know the facts of what happened. But first things first, we had to go bury him. And that was the next step. So obviously our house was inundated with people. I was inundated with phone calls. I went nonstop for a week. Ten days later, on April 13th, 2018, we buried him at West Point. And I'll tell you what, the night before his funeral, I had to go see him in the casket, in his dress blues, with his ribbons, dead. That was the worst thing, absolute worst, most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. He wasn't dismembered or damaged, but just seeing him lifeless, knowing how vibrant he was, knowing how vibrant and alive he was when he was on his game, when he was encouraging people, whether on a team or as a coach or in the military. Everybody I talked to that knew him loved him. I mean, his family loved him. We all loved him. But at some point, the perception of his life and who he meant to us in this world changed. I don't care about the causes. There's a million causes why someone can justify killing themselves. But at some point, his reality, his perception of who he thought he was to this world was wrong. And he killed himself for it. And I'm well aware of the phases of grief. I'm well aware of trauma and traumatic events. I'm well aware of how to bury people. I've buried several family members. But have to stand with my mom and my sister and my family and his wife and his kids. And listen to taps play for his funeral because he killed himself. It's the worst thing ever. Worst thing ever. So to me, the details don't matter as to why. You can look at finances, you can look at family issues, you can look at a broken down car, you could look at he stubbed his toe, I don't know. What causes someone to do that to themselves? The amount of pain that our family has suffered as a result of it. I'm angry. Right now, today, at this moment, I'm angry. And at the end of the day, I can't change it. He's still gone. So, I have to find a path forward, which I'm doing. My family is finding a path forward. But after the funeral, after the phone calls, After the flowers and the meals and all that stuff stops coming, he's still gone. And we still have our lives to live. And a little known fact about suicide, I think, and I've experienced it, is that now we all are afraid that somebody else in our family is going to do it. Well, he did it. Does that make it okay for my son to do it? Does that make it okay for his son or daughters to do it? Does that make it okay for my teenage daughter to do it? She's young and impressionable. Is my mom going to do it? And my mom, in turn, is James going to do it? I'm telling you, man. The ripple effect from one death from suicide, and I've experienced it in my own family, it's immeasurable. To this day, today, within the last 24 hours, I've looked on a memorial page that I created for my brother. And there's 2 people that learned within the last 24 hours of his death a year ago. And they're heartbroken. So I try to find my role in this. I accept that my role is not as big as in my own mind it is. I'm now the oldest male in my family. At least in my paternal bloodline, my father's side. And for all intents and purposes, on my mother's side, in our lineage, I am, in a lot of ways, I'm supposed to be the patriarch. I'm the oldest living male. And here we are. We're all trying to figure it out. I don't know what the hell the next step is. I know we have resources. I know we have tools. And I'm always looking for new ones. I'm disappointed to see the numbers that come out of the VA as a veteran. But at the same time, this is a little bit soapboxy, but at the same time, I know that we have to be our own advocates. We have to seek treatment if we feel we need it. But at the same time, if you're my brother or my friend, a coworker, and I see that you're checking out on life, then that's time for me to check in with you. And that's something I said at my brother's eulogy, and that's something I tell my friends now. And it's pretty cool because I actually get, just last night I got a text from a friend, hey, checking in. So Monday, April 2nd, 2018, if I had checked in with my brother, would he be alive? Because April 30 is not. I guess that's my story. And it sucks. It sucks to go through. I'll tell you that much. So my focus now in my life is to maintain my career, maintain my family, and I'm constantly reprioritizing because what was important a year ago, a year and 14 days ago, what was important a year and 14 days ago is not the same stuff that's important today. And that's because my brother chose to take his own life. Yeah. I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek because that's what I'm told he did. As a former homicide investigator, there's a skeptic in me that says, well, did somebody murder him? You know, it's pretty far-fetched. But that's just human nature to want something other than what the worst story could possibly be. But being that I can't change it, the only advice I could ever give anyone and to others is just what I said, that if you know someone who's hurting, if you know someone who's hurting and they start checking out, you check in. I think that might work. I don't know what else to say.